So hi once again. First of all, I would like to thank you in the name of company NIL. My name is Turnšek. I work for the company NIL, of course. I'm oriented to Microsoft technologies. In the last 2 years, I'm also more focused towards Azure and Microsoft Office 365. Today's agenda is as follows. First, we will take a look at Azure self-service portal. Then we will continue with the password write-back feature. We will take a deeper look at multi-factor authentication that is a part of Azure Active Directory. And as the time will permit, we will also check the single sign-on integration and Azure Active Directory integration with third-party software as a service applications. So, basic information at the beginning. This webinar is a continuation of the first webinar that was hosted by my coworker Robert Turnšek. And if you haven't yet watched the recording, or if you weren't an attendee at the first webinar, I strongly suggested that at the end of this webinar, you also check the Robert's webinar, because some concepts, some ideas were explained in the Robert's lectures. So this is our basic infrastructure. We have one on-prem server that hosts Active Directory services and also Azure Active Directory Connect tool. On the other side, in Azure Cloud, we have our Azure tenant that we are using to provision new users and also to integrate with all the other services that are available inside Azure. A lot of time in this lecture will be spent inside self-service portal that is accessible at the URL myapps.microsoft.com. This is the portal that is available to every single user account that is created inside Azure Active Directory. You can access this portal even though you don't have any special licenses assigned to you. So it's possible to log in into the portal without Office 365 license or any other Azure Active Directory license or anything else that is available inside Azure or Office 365. I will just switch to our demo environment. And first of all, I'll have to log in with my corporate credentials inside our Azure tenant. So as you can see, our login process is integrated with Active Directory Federation services. So I didn't have to enter my password because it took it from my credential token from my computer. Okay, so we are using the old, if I may say so, management portal for the Azure, because a lot of services are still accessible only through this portal, and one of these is also the Azure Active Directory feature. Here we have different Azure Active Directory tenants. We will be using Lab 05 tenant. And the first thing that I will show you is how to configure password write-back features and everything that is related to self-service password reset portal. So this is the administration panel that is accessible to the global administrators for Azure Active Directory service. And from here we have the users tab that shows all the users that are currently provisioned on Azure Active Directory. And the other part that is also interesting, and we will spend a lot of time inside this tab, is the Configure tab. Here we have all the global settings that are directly related to Azure Active Directory. Before we can reset a password for the user, we have to create the user in our on-prem Active Directory. Here I have a virtual machine that has Active Directory services installed, and I will simply create a new user inside Active Directory. I will give it a name. Let this be Mandy Taylor with user logon name mandy.taylor, and UPN suffix lab05robbie.si, and also let's give her a password. I will just give it a simple password of ABCD1234. Okay, so the user is created. Now for the password write-back feature to work, we have to reconfigure our Azure Active Directory Connect tool. So if you remember from the webinar that was presented by Robert, he installed Azure Active Directory Connect, and here we have different features that are available depending on the license and on the policy that our company has. We can enable them or leave them disabled as we like. So these features are set in this part. So as you can see, we already have enabled password synchronization. That means that password hashes from our on-prem Active Directory are synced to Azure Active Directory. But now we would also like to enable password write-back. So I will just enable it and continue and install. In a couple of seconds, the configuration will be completed. In the meantime, we also have to configure some settings in our Azure Active Directory tenant. So we are back to the administration panel, and on configure, we have to enable user password reset policy. And here we have some additional settings like restrict access to the passwords reset feature just to Active Directory group. So users that are member of this group will be only available to reset their password. We also have some authentication methods that are available to the users, and the part that is important for password write-back feature to work is this one, password write-back services status, and also this write-back passwords to on-premise Active Directory, which is already enabled. So this status of the service will change to active when the reconfiguration process on our Active Directory Connect tool successfully completes. Let's just save all the settings that we enabled, and also let's see what is going on our virtual machine. And it looks like the reconfiguration completed. Also, now, if you remember, we created a new user, Mandy Taylor. This user should also be available inside Azure Active Directory. So, as you can see, the process of reconfiguration automatically also synced our on-prem Active Directory with Azure Active Directory. Okay, so the first part is completed. Now we should add Mandy Taylor to the group that has the permissions to reset the user passwords. So the group is this one. We will simply add one additional user. Okay. And now we have to assign the license to Mandy, because all these password reset features are available only if we have the correct license for each individual user. There are different licenses that are available. The most complete one is Azure Active Directory Premium, but it's also possible to use some of the features if you have Office 365 license, but it depends on the type of the license that you assign to your user. So for now, we will just use the Active Directory Premium license, assign the users, choose our user, and here, assign. And after the process completes, she should be already able to access this new feature that is available. To do this, we have first to log in into the user self-service portal that I shown you on the presentation slide. So we will access the myapps.microsoft.com portal, sign in with Mandy Taylor at lab05.microsoft.com username, and we will sign in with passwords. So as you can see, because we assigned to the user a new feature, that is the password reset feature, it also says that we have to verify some additional information. So, okay, this part is completed. Now, if I go under the Profile tab, I can already change the password using the Azure Self-Service Portal. So, if I click here to change password, I have to enter the old password and create a new password. And now the self-service password reset feature will connect back to our Active Directory, and I can check here on the virtual machine that some inside event viewer that there are some events that are related to password reset service. As you can see, the event clearly states that Mandy Taylor, her password was successfully reset. Now, if I go back to the self-service portal, I sign out and try to sign back in. It will, of course, ask me to use the newly created password, and the process successfully worked. Okay, this was the password write-back feature. Now we will continue our presentation with the multi-factor authentication that is also available with the same license. So multi-factor authentication is an additional layer of security when the user signs into a service that is hosted inside Azure, or it's also possible to integrate this multi-factor authentication with some other third-party solution. But these are some advanced configurations that won't be checked in today's demo, but it's available to integrate, let's say, with a VPN appliance, or maybe with remote desktop services gateway. So when the user will try to sign in, the user will first be asked for his or her password, and afterwards another verification will happen, like a call on a telephone number, or maybe a verification code on your mobile phone, and there are some other types of verification also available. So to configure multi-factor authentication, again, we have to go into our Azure administration portal, and here under configure, we have multi-factor authentication subpage. So it's right here, and when we click on manage service settings, so under service settings, we have some basic global settings related to the multi-factor authentication service, where we can set some trusted IP networks. So if we are signing into Office 365 from our corporate network, we can define here the IP addresses, and it won't ask us for the second part of the verification. We will switch to Users tab. We will choose our user and enable the multi-factor authentication for her, and enable multi-factor. Okay, so now you can see that the status has changed to enabled, but this is not all that has to be done. We also have to verify the authentication methods. Again, we have to switch to the user's self-service portal under Profile, we have an additional icon, additional security verification. So everything was verified. I will finish this process, and now let's see how this multi-factor authentication really works. I will log out from the user service portal and try to log back in. So the first part is the password, and now, as you can see, the second part, Azure is calling me on the specified number. So again, in a few seconds, I should receive the call, and as you can see, I was able to successfully sign into the portal. This is the multi-factor authentication when we are accessing the services using the web browser. We can also have different services available inside Azure or also somewhere else that are not only available through web browser, but also we can use some different application like Outlook to access our email, or maybe a Link client or Skype for Business client. If we are accessing, let's say, email that is hosted inside Office 365, we use almost the same process to sign into our mailbox. We simply click on Outlook, the application starts. Here I have an account that is pre-configured for two-factor authentication. I enter the password, and again the service calls me. I will, in the same fashion, confirm. Okay.
Your sign-in is successfully verified. Goodbye.
And I was successfully authenticated, and the sign-in continued. So from this part on, everything is the same as using the classic method to authenticate against the Exchange server. It is also possible to access your mailbox using some legacy applications. Let's say Outlook 2010 is such type of application that can access your mailbox in Office 365, but does not support the authentication protocols that are needed for two-factor authentication to work. For such clients, there is an additional setting available that is named application password. When we define it, this application password is used instead your normal credential password, and in such a way this legacy application is able to access the mailbox. If we enable for our company two-factor authentication, if there are any users that use a legacy application, they can still access all the services that we provide to them. The last part of our demo will be dedicated to Azure Active Directory applications. We will again switch back to our administration portal, and we will go under applications. And here we can add an application. We will add an application from the gallery. So here are some predefined applications that can interact with Azure Active Directory. We will just choose Twitter, let's say, and add it here. When the process completes, we have to set some additional settings for the integration between Twitter and Azure Active Directory to really work. So we will configure single sign-on. We will choose the first one, password single sign-on. What we're really doing here, we are connecting our authentication source, that is Azure Active Directory, with a third-party application that is hosted inside Azure, and using web services that both applications will communicate and exchange the credentials. This is the first part of the configuration. Now we go under the Configure tab and choose Yes under Service Access to Twitter. also we will require that the administration approves. If the user wants to access the Twitter application, we will define who will be the administrator. So it will be a predefined user, Azure admin, inside our tenant. And also here we will put check mark. And now let's save the settings. After this configuration completes, we as a user, so we will switch back to our Mandy Taylor user profile. We will be able to see some additional applications that are available to us. So let's use another account. Okay, again, the two-factor authentication kicks in, and I will receive a call from the service. And now, under the applications tab inside self-service user profile, I can click on Get More Applications, and in a short while, I should see our newly created application, that is Twitter. I click on this, I add the application, and now a request will be sent to the administrator that was defined. So this is the Azure admin account. So I will have to log in to his self-service profile. Okay, already inside. And under the approvals, I should see that Mandy Taylor created a new request to access the application, and I will approve the access, of course. And in a few seconds, the change should also appear inside Mandy's self-service portal. So let's refresh the page. In the meantime, if I switch back to the Azure admin self-service portal, under Manage Applications, I can manage the applications that I'm the administrator for. As you can see, when I, as a Mandy Taylor, created a request to access the application, also an email was automatically sent to the administrator. So it's also possible from the email application to access the request. And here, for the Twitter application, I can configure some settings. Let's say that we have a Twitter account that is used by our marketing department. So all the users that are members of the marketing department need access to the Twitter account. But we don't want to disclose the password for this Twitter account, so we create this integration using the Azure Active Directory, and the users will only use their corporate credential to access the Twitter. So, okay, here I have to enter the Twitter account information. So these credentials are securely stored inside Azure Active Directory, and the end users don't have access to the credentials. But now if I go back to the Mandy Taylor self-service portal and I click refresh, I should see the application. Okay, as you can see, Twitter is available. If I click on this, I will be automatically taken to the Twitter page. So Mandy didn't know the password. She was simply logged into the account, and she can manage now the account. Now if I switch back to the administration console, for these applications integration, there are different levels of integration. If I show you the Google Apps that was pre-created by me, here we have a deeper kind of integration. So when a new user is created inside Azure Active Directory, it gets also automatically provisioned inside Google's system that is used to store the users. And also it's possible to add some additional scripts that automatically a user role is assigned to the user and so on. So it depends on the application that is available in the gallery. It's also possible to integrate your application that your software team is developing and integrate it with Azure AD. But the process is not that simple as using the gallery. Okay, so that would be all for today's webinar. If there are any questions, okay, there is one question. The question was if it is possible to use multi-factor authentication with any other non-Azure related services. So yeah, I already mentioned this, that there is a server that is called Multi-Factor Authentication Server, of course, and you install it on one of your virtual machines inside your data center, and then this Multi-Factor Authentication Server communicates with your, let's say, VPN appliance. It can integrate with Cisco ASA or maybe Juniper Secure SSL VPN appliance. There are also some other appliances that are supported. So it's possible also to use Azure Multi-Factor Authentication with non-Microsoft, non-Azure related services. Okay, if there are no additional questions, I would just like to thank you for attending our webinar.